Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jaden Roberts. I am a mental health counselor therapist in Spokane, Washington. I have a private practice here. I am what they would call a little woo-woo. I've also studied shamanism, Buddhist psychology, herbal medicine, a little dabbling in Chinese medicine, several different kinds of energy medicine and energy work. And I keep a blog associated with my practice on my website, as well as I wrote a book, and so I kind of keep all of the things associated with my practice on the website. And I decided I would try a new thing. I'm going to do this video blog instead of the normal written blog that I had been keeping. It just seemed a little easier than taking the time to write a blog out, and I'm kind of excited about the media. So, welcome to my first one, and thanks for coming. I wanted to talk a little bit about the family right now. As I'm practicing and as I'm meditating, I'm kind of observing what's going on and getting some messages that come through when I'm meditating. And there is definitely a thing going on with the American family, and specifically with the white middle to upper class American family. It's certainly not limited to that, and it definitely isn't a dynamic that's affecting all white middle class families. There's lots that are super healthy and really great, but there is a specific ilk or variety of the white middle class American family that seems to be particularly in crisis right now. And that is the family that looks really great from the outside, but the inner workings of the family aren't necessarily all that nourishing to the people who are part of that family. So what you see in that family is generally doing reasonably well financially. Kids are clean, kids are involved in lots of activities, parents are kind of upstanding in the community in most cases. But the emotional content of the family is absent, or it's dysfunctional, it's manipulative. There's things going on within the family where needs aren't being met, or there are things that aren't okay for kids or for adults. But the expectation is that everybody in that family present as though everything is just fine, hunky-dory. And there is a lot of sometimes inner conflict, sometimes not, but a lot of strategies within these families about maintaining that facade or that front to the world, and even a lot of times within the family, there tends to be a lot of denial around the dynamics that are problematic, the things that are missing, or the things that aren't okay. And I always think that, as the Buddhists say, the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. And theoretically, in a family, the person pointing the problem is not the problem. But in these families, the person pointing to the problem is very much the problem. There is a lot of denial of there being any kind of a problem. So folks who point, like a family member who points that out, which is frequently one of the kids who is kind of the designated actor out, or the, like, in systems theory, when there is a problem in a system, when there is a dysfunction in any kind of a system, that dysfunction will be evidenced somewhere in the system. There will be a symptom of the problem within the system, and within these families, frequently one of the children is kind of the identified problem, and that child is symptomatic of whatever is wrong within the family, and they are evidencing symptoms, and the family, rather than seeing that symptomology as evidence of a problem within the family, they instead identify that child as the problem, and then are frequently shaming or oppressive or whatever they do to try to get that kid to straighten up and look more okay than they are. So that family, frequently of Northern European descent, is really coming apart at the seams right now. And with, like, no family's perfect. Every family has its issues. But within families where issues are allowed, are identified, and you can talk about them, and or where there's dysfunction even, but that dysfunction is acknowledged, it's not hidden and oppressed or repressed. Those families are kind of still chugging along, but this family that is in absolute denial and kind of hiding mode, CYA mode, as far as the problems within the family, that family is really struggling right now. There's a lot of conflict. There is a lot of people kind of just, pardon the phrase, losing their shit. Like the they aren't able, the wheels are coming off. They aren't able to maintain the facade at this point, or some parties aren't able to maintain the facade. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because for people who come from these families, they frequently have kind of drank the Kool-Aid. Like they really feel like they had a great childhood and my family's really wonderful. They're so acclimated to not having their needs met, or to these very subtle forms of dysfunction, whether they're manipulation or exploitation or control or whatever it is, around maintaining this sort of narcissistic facade of the family, that they frequently don't recognize that there is the dysfunction. And these families look great from the outside, so there's not acknowledgement outside for these kids, especially, that they're like, the messages they get are like, wow, you're so lucky, what a great family you have. And so that the problem with that family is the problem with that family is that it doesn't meet the needs of the members. It particularly doesn't meet the needs of the kids. A lot of these kids are very emotionally neglected, very emotionally manipulated. Sometimes there's some physical abuse, that sort of thing going on. And there's not, in a family where you're expected to just like approximate the good daughter or the good son or whatever that means, there's not a lot of room to be a person. Like, you are expected to be what you're expected to be, and that's the thing that makes the family look more functional than it is. And so there's a lot of inhibiting of the personal development of the kids within these families. They don't really get to like grow and develop into their authentic selves. And so a lot of times they have been acculturated into playing roles rather than being a person. And as a result, part of the role is this mythos around how great our family is. So a lot of times these folks haven't historically really acknowledged to themselves or to anybody else what was going on within the family that wasn't okay. And there's a lot of fear around the acknowledgement of that, whether they've observed another family member being the finger pointing to the moon and being kind of crucified for it, or they have kind of tried to be an authentic self and kind of tried to speak their truth, or just tried to kind of break role. And there's been a lot of punishing, whether that be verbal abuse or rejection or withdrawal of love, kind of emotional abandonment, that sort of thing, whatever the means have been to kind of keep them looking like what they're supposed to look like. So the problem in the larger picture with this family is that because it tends to be white middle class, upper middle class families that look pretty good, they're turning out a lot of walking wounded into the world and into really positions of cultural power, because unfortunately we're still grappling with racism, and we're very much grappling with classism, and access to opportunity is better for the middle class and upper middle class. So as we turn these people who are sort of needy children on some level, or who are emotionally wounded or have these deficits that they have lived with, they go out into the world, and that, from the Chinese medicine perspective, that it plays out in a lot of ways, but one of the key ways that it plays out is through what the Chinese medicine system would call an earth imbalance, earth being kind of nourishment and nurturing, emotionally and physically. And so there is a tendency to be shopaholics, or to have issues around food, or issues around alcohol. That certainly is across the board, but specifically with this. And so in the big picture, these folks get into positions of power and kind of through no fault of their own, just because of the unconsciousness of psychological and emotional wounds, tend to be a little exploitative of the people around them and very exploitative of the earth. There's very frequently a need to amass a lot of stuff or to have the good stuff, and in these families frequently that has been kind of what the small faucet drip of love looked like, was gifts or things. So in the big picture, this has had a cultural impact as far as a propensity for exploitation, but definitely an environmental impact as well, in that we are a country that consumes more natural resources per capita than I think any other. We're not doing the earth any favors. I feel like it's getting better, but we're not there yet. So as I'm watching this play out, I think that's really significant to know, is that if you are one of the folks whose family is going through this right now, first of all, you deserve to have your needs met. Like, you deserve to have the love and the validation and the praise, and to be welcomed and celebrated for exactly who you are. That's what families should do. And so as these many, many, many generations long dynamics are kind of coming apart, I think it creates space for that to start to happen, for these families to heal, and for things to become genuinely about love and communication and support and safety, emotional safety, physical safety within the family, and for families to be an incubator that grows authentic, healthy humans, rather than kind of a play of a disparate, disconnected group of people who are putting on a show called family that doesn't have any emotional content, or doesn't have enough emotional content, and that is really malnourishing at the spiritual and emotional level for the members. So it's an amazing opportunity for that to come apart, honestly, for the wheels to come off and for it to implode upon itself. But then for those family members to kind of find their way to what Brene Brown would call a more wholehearted sort of family, which is just better. It's better for everybody involved. But at the larger picture, it provides the opportunity to heal so much of what is problematic within our culture. I mean, really, if you look at everything that's wrong in culture, it boils down to lack, to deficits within the family, whether that's a deficit of love or a deficit of validation, or even where there's physical abuse, a deficit of safety, emotional safety, physical safety. That is at the root of addiction, of homelessness, of exploitation of other people and of natural resources, of domestic violence, of tribalism. I mean, there's really very little in our culture that is a cultural ill that doesn't really boil down to ways that families didn't provide what was needed to children when that thing was needed. So I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that and give some perspective, because I think this works out really beautifully. I think so much good comes from this, and I think this has the potential, along with a lot of other things that are going on right now. And I'll talk more about that. Those who are my clients and those who know me know my perspective on kind of the larger shift of what's going on in the world right now within the collective human consciousness. My perspective, and it's not just my perspective, shared perspective, on how COVID has played a role in that. Not that I'm delighted about people being sick, but the quarantine and the kind of forced stillness and opportunity to be still and to be inside yourself and to learn how to be present in your own skin, and kind of the hijacking of our ability to be addictively busy, or all of the other things that we have historically used to avoid being fully present. I think there's a lot of actually healing that's coming out of that for those who have taken the opportunity to do some inner work around this. So as we come out of COVID, and I think that we're finally coming out of COVID on some level, I think that this has the potential to do so much good for the culture of our country and really globally and for humanity at large. So that's it. So that's my post for today, and I hope that it has some value to you. And thank you so much for coming. Yeah, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.